Well, let's talk about other parts of who you are because this is just one of four action modes or four parts of your cognitive self or Kolbe results that we look at. So the other three are follow through, quick start, and implementer. And so the numbers of those are six in follow through, five in quick start, and three in implementer. But let me tell a little more about what each of those mean rather than just the numbers. So the follow through with your six, that's so the numbers go from 1 to 10. So six is you're toward the end of the spectrum, but only a little bit that has to do with being systematic and structured and organized. So you don't start action taking or problem solving by putting everything into a structure and coming up with a plan and a process and a system, but you also don't push back on that. You kind of accommodate that, leaning toward being more systematic and structured. So when you pair that with your fact finder, you getting information and doing research, the natural thing for you to do would be get the information, do the research, and that might include, oh, what have other people done in terms of creating systems that might be useful for this kind of situation? So whether that's producing a segment for on air or social media, you don't have to create the system, but it's natural for you to find one and plug yourself into it. And if you've been working with one that isn't quite doing it for you, you'll take a similar approach. Hey, what has somebody else done? This isn't working. This system isn't working. But rather than just abandoning it and not having any system, you'll find something else that can be a substitute. Um, in what I know can be a chaotic environment in a TV situation, um, with your follow through, you don't push and create chaos typically. You more control it. You are toward the end of the spectrum again that creates systems and structure rather than just kind of free forming everything. Um, so I think that helps you accommodate some of that, some of the unstructured times that can happen in a newsroom. So some of it's the unstructured, not so systematic, but then let's also talk about this quick start part of you. So quick start is how we deal with risk, unknowns, experimentation. So you're a five, which is right in the middle. So if it were a two in quick start, you would really be somebody who stabilizes, who would be in a chaotic situation, just kind of push back and be like, nope, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to find what's working or what should be working and stick with that. The other end of the spectrum is somebody who really almost insists on, I mean, it sounds terrible to say insists on chaos, but I would say insists on experimenting and trying out new things and just doing things differently. You accommodate those extremes. So again, in a newsroom, and maybe I should pause. Am I correct that your work environment can get chaotic?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Breaking news, weather, you name it, chaos happens all the time.
Okay. So yeah, you're not creating that chaos with your Colby result, with your MO, but you do naturally accommodate that. So I would think you would be a helpful presence for other people in the office because they sense that, hey, Katie's not the one who's creating this stressful, chaotic situation. She's dealing with it though. She's dealing with it pretty naturally. Because you accommodate it, sometimes people won't, they'll kind of know it, but they won't necessarily give you conscious credit for it. They just would unconsciously gravitate towards you in that situation, like, hey, Katie will be a calming source in this. But because you're not super out front with the way you're dealing with the chaos, you just kind of handle it, you accommodate it. They won't necessarily think about later, like, oh, who would you go to? And like, it would be Katie. They just do that in the situation.
That's
So
so true.
is it how, like, give me an example that you can think of.
Oh man, I'm sure I have so many. We often say that this is a thankless industry, because if you do something wrong, you hear about it. If you do something right, then you just keep going. And it can be on a small scale, and it can be on a massive scale. And sometimes when you are often like myself kind of managing and handling high stress or or an uncertain maybe piece of news breaking or an error or whatever, or we need to fact check something that we heard that from someone else. It's so easy for someone to just grab it and run with it and then move on because everything is so in the moment in our business. And yeah, there have been many times where like maybe people will be talking about a project or a specific moment and like I'll be like, "Oh, well, I was definitely a part of that." But you know what? That's okay because at least it all went smoothly. And I just feel like that happens all the time and it's so funny that you picked up on that just from me scoring a 5 and as you were explaining I do feel like a 5. I feel like right smack in the middle because I internally, when there's chaos and uncertainty, I'll feel a little bit unsteady, like anyone might. And I might think, "Oh gosh, what am I gonna do? What's our team gonna do? This is so unknown." But I try to stay pretty calm and don't wanna panic, and I want my team to trust me, and I wanna solve the problem. So, I feel like a 5 is pretty much perfect.
Yeah. And well, here's the thing. Your result is perfect for you because it's you. So it sounds like it's also pretty perfect for what you're doing in those situations and the role you're supposed to play. Um, I'd encourage you to find usually subtle ways work best, but let people know by pointing out to them the positive role that you play because fives and even the sixes. So for both of those where you're in that mid range, often those strengths that you have they get very used, but they can be unappreciated sometimes. So if you find subtle ways, so you don't want to like, look at me, everybody, I'm a superstar. But if you can just point out to somebody like, oh my gosh, sometimes it's after the fact. That was crazy yesterday, and I'm so glad I was able to help keep things kind of going smoothly without it spinning out of control. And I make that distinction because with your really great skill and talent for being that information gathering person, a lot of times you already have the information necessary and you're so quick with it. A lot of times people misunderstand when we talk about fact finder and they think, oh, you're going to be slow and deliberate because you've got to research everything. But if you've already researched a situation where you've been in it 6 times, what to count on next, or the questions that are come up, um, you're quick to act. So, but there are times where you don't know what you need to know and you spot that and you can just say, you know what? Let's pull somebody else in because I think this would be a great time for that person to thrive. And that's also, I think, a really great way to be a respected leader because people see you don't just try to do everything when you ought to know that this isn't the best time for you. And people appreciate that.